Tickets have been reduced by $200 each, my mother said. If you cannot manage the cost, then stay behind. I agreed silently and then received a notification. My credit card had been charged for 4 business class tickets that were not mine. I quickly opened my banking app, selected all the disputed charges, and froze the account. When it was time to check in, my sister messaged, "Why is nothing paid for?" I replied, "What do you mean?" I chose to stay home and later reserved a trip on my own. The following day, my father appeared at my apartment. Tickets cost $1,200 apiece. My mother stated, "If you can't handle the expense, then don't come along." I did not argue. I simply nodded and even forced a smile to hide the hurt. This was the 6th time in 2 years my own family made it clear that I was unwelcome unless I covered the cost myself. She said it casually over speakerphone while I was still wearing hospital scrubs, dripping with sweat after a 12-hour shift. I had just completed consecutive night shifts to pay rent and chip away at my student loans. Everyone was headed to Maui. My mother, father, sister Emily, her husband Jason, a full week away, flying business class, of course. "You know, we deserve this," she added. "It has been tough on all of us." As if I wasn't included in that all of us. As if I had not lent Emily $2,500 last April, when Jason lost his job in sales, or covered Dad's medical deductible when his blood pressure surged, and he refused to seek urgent care because of the cost. I told her it was fine, and that I would stay behind. After that, I went back to cleaning vomit from an intoxicated patient who tried to hit me for suggesting he lie down. Later that night, my phone lit up with a notification from my credit card app. There were alerts for business class tickets priced at $200 each. The card was mine, but not the names listed. I opened the app to see passengers named Chloe B., Jason B., Sarah M., Mom, Michael M., Dad, no Alex M., and no me. I stared at the screen for a full minute. My hands turned cold and my heart raced. They had charged my card again without asking or informing me, assuming I would pay as usual. Not even a window seat was reserved for me. I chose to dispute all charges and lock the account immediately. About an hour later, as I was brushing my teeth, my phone buzzed once more. It was a text from Emily wondering why nothing had been paid for because they were already at check-in. I wiped the toothpaste from my mouth, glanced at the message, took a deep breath, and replied, "What you said?" I stayed behind, but not in the way they expected. I booked my own escape to a warmer, quieter place. No family, no obligations, no guilt. The following morning my phone rang again. It was a call from Dad, but I ignored it. That afternoon, he came to my apartment and knocked as though he owned the place. I didn't open the door. The fight wasn't just about the tickets. They were the final straw on a mountain of broken limits and overdraft fees. It had all started when I was 22, and Chloe borrowed my credit card to buy a dress for her engagement party. A temporary emergency loan of $600, because you work in healthcare and never bother to dress up, so it is not like you would even notice. She assured me she would repay the money by the end of the month. She never did. Then it was Dad asking me to co-sign a loan so they could remodel their kitchen. He said it was not for us, but to increase the resale value. "One day you will inherit it," he said. Spoiler alert, the house was refinanced twice, and they used the money to cover Justin's second unsuccessful business venture. At the time, I was working more than 50 hours per week, barely managing to stay afloat. Somehow I remained the family ATM, the reliable one, the nurse with a steady income, the unmarried one without children, the person expected to contribute because family members support each other. But it was never a two-way street. When I came down with pneumonia last winter after working through flu season and asked Mom to bring me some soup, she replied, "I cannot, sweetheart. I promised Emily I would watch the kids while she gets her nails done." You understand? I always did. When Jason crashed my car, the one I lent to him while his was in the shop, my insurance premiums doubled. He did not even apologize but just shrugged and said, "That is what insurance is for, right?" They drained me slowly, drop by drop, until I barely noticed anymore, like boiling a frog. I was the frog until the week before the trip to Hawaii. That was the real breaking point. I was finishing a night shift when Emily texted, "Can you move your payday up?" "Mom wants to. We need to book hotels and we're short," she messaged. I replied with a simple, "What, payday?" wondering what she meant by being short. Then she sent a message filled with hula dancers alongside emojis of a family trip, desert island, hibiscus flowers, and a dancing woman. Curious, I called Mom. "Emily said you need help with the hotels?" I asked, trying to sound neutral. "Oh, darling, no need to stress about that," she chirped. "Everything's already reserved. We just needed a little extra to upgrade to business class. You know how terrible Jason's knees are." I was stunned. "Wait, you want me to pay for upgrades on a trip I'm not even attending?" After a pause, the tone shifted. "Look, Abigail, if you wanted to come, you should have said so, but the flights cost $10,200 each. If that's out of your budget, maybe it's better if you skip this one. No hard feelings." She sounded like I was a burden, as if my presence was an annoyance to their luxurious plans. I didn't argue. Instead, I just hung up, silent, calm, numb. Then a notification popped up. My card was charged for 4 business class tickets. That's when the numbness shattered. All the sacrifices I'd made, all the vacations I deferred, dinners I missed, or times I worked extra shifts. What was it for? So they could enjoy their extravagance while I watched my pills carefully and ate instant noodles 3 nights a week. That night, I sat at my desk staring at a spreadsheet of my financial situation. I had $327 in checking and $14,200 in student debt. My car was 6 years old and had 119,000 miles on it. I hadn't gone on a vacation since college. Meanwhile, the contrast was so stark it broke something inside me. Jason was sipping on top-shelf champagne, with my name clearly printed on the bill, alongside Emily's. She had the nerve to message me from the check-in line asking, "Why is nothing covered?" That moment shattered everything. That was exactly who they had always been. I was not family. I was just the wallet. I replied bluntly, "What did you say?" I stayed put. Then I did something completely unexpected. I opened a travel website and booked my own trip. It wasn't extravagant, but it was entirely mine. Free from obligations, free from guilt. The following day, Dad appeared at my doorstep like a character straight out of a suspense movie, still wearing his Hawaiian shirt, standing outside my apartment with a strange mix of confusion, anger, and entitlement in his eyes. He knocked. I didn't respond. He knocked again, louder this time, saying, "Abigail, open up. We need to talk." I stayed silent. He remained there for 7 minutes. I timed it, before walking away. That night, I received a voicemail from Sarah. She said, "You really hurt your father today. He came back early to talk to you after everything we have done for you." Done for me? I saved that message, not as a memory, but as proof. I was finished with fooling myself. The day after, Emily called 5 times and then sent this gem. "Grow up. You can't punish the whole family over one misunderstanding." Misunderstanding? They exploited me, stole from me, and ridiculed me. And now that I refused, I was the villain. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was finished. They assumed silence meant surrender, that if they knocked long and loud enough, eventually, I would cave. I would give in, just like before. Yet this time, I had changed. The following day, Jason returned once more. Accompanied by Sarah, They stood in the identical hallway of the condo, their faces still burdened with the same weary manipulation. I refused to open the door. That evening, messages began pouring in from Emily. She accused me of being utterly unfair, insisting we needed that upgrade. She explained that Justin's knees swell during flights in economy class. Did I realize the consequences of my actions? They were unable to check in, forced to downgrade, and pay extra out of pocket. How humiliating that experience was for them. Family is meant to support one another, she reminded me, again invoking that word, family. I typed a response but deleted it multiple times before finally sending a single message. You mean like when I covered your rent for 8 months and you forgot to repay me? There was no response. Soon after, calls from Sarah flooded my phone, all of which I ignored. Then a text came from Jason demanding I grow up and stop acting like a victim. They insisted they had no other option, that they did not expect the card to be declined, and that I was supposed to assist, as I always did. I stared at that last statement for a long moment. You were supposed to assist. As though I were some kind of family employee whose absence was punishable misconduct. I chose not to reply. But I wasn't finished yet. They believed this was merely a passing phase, or a tantrum I would eventually outgrow, as usual. This time, everything had shifted. I felt anger, not just emotional pain, but also exhaustion from years of supporting a system where I silently provided financial backing. So, I did the unexpected and sat down to prepare an invoice. A $600 dress for Emily's engagement that was never reimbursed. A $2,500 loan to Emily and Jason during his period of unemployment. An $800 MRI deductible for Dad paid out of pocket. $420 for groceries that Mom forgot to repay via Venmo. $1,200 charged for 4 business class tickets to Hawaii without authorization. $150 in interest and late fees resulting from these charges. Altogether, the outstanding balance amounted to $770. Then I sent this detailed summary to the family group chat. I requested reimbursement for these unauthorized expenses and previous financial support. Since you believe families should help one another, please review the attached statement of all aid I have provided over the last 24 months. Beginning July 1st, I will stop covering family costs. Complete repayment must be made within 30 business days. Otherwise, I will report the improper use of my financial information to my credit provider. No additional monetary dealings will be accepted going forward. The group chat erupted instantly. Emily, are you serious? What kind of person bills their own family? Mom said this is painful and needless. Abigail added, you are making things worse. Dad stated, we raised you to be better than this. That moment was the breaking point because the truth was, they never truly raised me. I had to raise myself. Juggling extra work shifts, unpaid loans, and acting as the fallback for everyone else's careless choices, I responded with the facts. You did not raise me. I was overwhelmed by how one-sided everything turned out to be. The relationship ended, and I allowed it. But not anymore. Then I blocked Emily. I left. Jason and Sarah unblocked out of pure curiosity to see how far the delusion would go. It turned out to be very deep. The following night they appeared in person again. I caught a glimpse of them through the peephole. Jason seemed tense. Sarah clutched some papers, likely receipts and excuses. I opened the door. You have to talk to us, Sarah said, her voice shaking. No, I really do not, I replied calmly. Jason stepped forward. This stunt, freezing the credit, the invoice, it is spiteful, Chloe. We are your family, and you used my name and card to buy tickets. I snapped, that is not family. That was a serious betrayal of trust. Sarah began to cry. We never thought it would be a problem. You always help. I interrupted, because you trained me to. Since I was 22, You have treated me like a walking debit card. I helped because I was taught that refusing meant I was a bad daughter. But I am done being the good daughter. Do not speak to your mother that way, Jason growled. No, do not talk to me as if I owe you anything, I shot back. I worked double shifts, while Emily and Jason used my money to drink mimosas at LAX. I contributed to paying your hospital bills while you called me selfish behind my back. He stepped forward. Do you think this makes you strong? Turning away from family? No, I said, but it makes me free. I closed the door in their faces, not slammed, just firm, intentional, and final. They did not knock again. Later one night I received a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was soft and defeated. I thought, I don't know who you are anymore. And for the very first time in my life, hearing that made me smile. Because I was no longer the person they once trampled on. After I shut the door in my father's face, the silence that followed was not peaceful. It was sharp, deliberate, and absolute. No more pounding on the door. No more voicemails full of guilt. Just an emptiness where their control had existed. For 2 days, there was complete silence. Not a single word from any of them. I half believed that cold distance would never end. Then panic set in. It started with an email from my bank. Someone had tried to use my old frozen credit card again to rent a car in Maui. Of course, it was Jason. I contacted the fraud department, and they confirmed the attempted purchase matched his identification details. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I wasn't ready to do that, but I made sure they recorded everything, and I emailed the report to myself with the subject line evidence in case it escalated. Later that same evening, I got a text from an unknown number. It read, "We're stranded. Are you seriously going to abandon your family after all we've done for you, Emily?" I stared at the message for a long time. What have they really done for me, other than take from me? I did not respond, only took a screenshot and saved it in a new folder I called Family Patterns I Will Not Repeat. A few days went by, and then something truly strange happened. I received a message on Facebook from Marissa. Yes, Marissa. That was Marissa, Jason's former wife. We had not been in contact for years. The last I knew, she had relocated to the opposite side of the country after their separation and started anew. She was always sharper than him, a fierce lawyer with determination and zero tolerance for foolishness. Her message was straightforward. Hey, Abigail. Sorry for the sudden message, but you might want to have a conversation. I responded, Is this about Jason? She sent an approving emoji, then a file in PDF format. I paused briefly before opening it. Inside were screenshots, records of bank transactions, a clear money trail. Apparently, Jason had been redirecting money from a shared family account. Mom and Dad had entrusted him access for emergencies. He was gambling once more, this time in cryptocurrency, involving risky moves and poor judgment. Things were worse than I thought. Among the screenshots were emails. One from Mom pleading with Marissa not to expose anything, another from Dad promising, "We will handle this. Abigail does not need to be informed." Everyone knew the truth. They all did. They concealed it from me out of fear I would cut them off before I actually managed to do so. The flight bookings were only a small indication. They were draining my resources to patch up Jason's financial disaster. I called Marissa at once. She answered on the second ring. "I did not know if you would want to talk," she said, "but I could not keep standing by quietly. I am aware of how they treated you." I asked why she decided to send this now. She hesitated, then answered, "Because you are finally taking the step I should have taken years ago, walking away. And I believed you ought to be told the whole truth." That evening, I printed every single page, every transfer, every suspicious message. I fastened them together and carried them over to my desk. For the first time in many years, I slept with the window open, feeling the breeze flow through my room, free from the usual anxiety tightening my chest. The next morning, an unknown number called me. I ignored it and let it go to voicemail. It was Dad. His voice sounded low, not angry but weary. "Abigail, I don't know what to say. Your mother is overwhelmed by stress. Emily is barely eating. Jason is struggling. We made mistakes, certainly, but you have made your point. I am asking, as a man to a woman, can we please have a conversation?" I typed a single sentence in reply and sent it. "You don't deserve the kindness you never earned." That week I sent the invoice once more, this time including Marissa's files as extra proof, supplementary evidence. I also copied Aunt Linda, and for added effect, I forwarded an edited version anonymously to Dad's employer's Human Resources Department. A few days later, I received a notification that Dad was no longer listed on the company's website. I did not celebrate. I felt no anger, only detachment. Meanwhile, my own life flourished. I signed up for therapy, real face-to-face sessions. I went on long walks, bought a bicycle, and tried cooking something different every weekend. I began dating a man I met in the hospital cafeteria named David. He was quiet, inquisitive, and had no knowledge of my family. I shared with him stories about them, about myself, about the person I was finally becoming without their influence. One afternoon, David and I sat together on my couch. I was going over a nearby hiking path when he pointed at one trail and grinned, asking, "Want to go next weekend?" For the first time in many years, I did not feel the need to check my bank balance. I simply said yes. Several weeks later, I received one final letter, written by hand, without a return address. The handwriting was familiar. Emily's. It was 5 pages of manipulation disguised as an apology. "We all make mistakes. You took it too far. Mom cries every day. You have turned your back on family." At the end she wrote, "We are family. Nothing changes that." Then I realized she was right. We are family. That made it even harder. Because the ones who betrayed me were not strangers, but the people who knew me best, and still chose to do so. I folded the letter, put it on the Marissa file, and locked both away in a drawer. The night before my birthday, I received a card in the mail. Simple, with no return address. Inside were just 3 words, "And I see you." It was from Marissa. At that moment, I smiled because finally someone understood. It has been 6 months since I closed the door on my past. 6 months since I stopped feeling guilty for saying no. 6 months since I looked in the mirror and saw not a walking wallet, but a woman whole and free. I once thought closure meant they would come to me, heads bowed, tears flowing, delivering apologies and forgiveness. But closure was never their responsibility. It was mine. 3 weeks ago, I ran into my mother by chance as I was picking up a quiet downtown cafe in the morning, still half asleep, earbuds in, hoodie pulled up. Then her voice, "Abigail." I looked up, and there she was, smaller than I thought. Not only in height, but in presence, as if time had diminished her essence. She smiled as if nothing had passed, as if we had never battled through silence and unpaid bills. "Can we sit?" she asked. We sat down. She was the first to speak, rambling on without true apologies, just a rewriting of memories. "We were just trying to keep everything together. We did not realize how much burden you carried. If we could start again, maybe we'd do some things differently." There was no taking responsibility, no mention of the deceit, no word about Jason trying to misuse my credit, no accountability for Emily's harshness. It felt like an emotional rehearsal where I was expected to be the forgiving daughter, but I had moved past that role. Then came the question I knew was coming. "Do you hate us now?" I did not hesitate. "No," I said, "but I do not owe you anything anymore." She blinked in surprise. "But we are family." I answered calmly. That is not a reason. That is an excuse. She pulled out an envelope from her purse and handed it to me, stood up, and said she hoped I would return to them one day. I told her without emotion, I already did, and I am not coming back. After she left, I opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $7,870. No note, no apology, just a silent message marked by a $sign. I did not cash it at once. Instead, I pinned it on my wall over my desk beside a quote that changed my life. You are not obligated to burn yourself to keep others warm. Emily never reached out directly again, but Sarah did. It turns out that after sharing Justin's financial deceptions with me, she forwarded the same package of evidence to a family law attorney in the state fraud office. Jason is currently facing an investigation for wire fraud and misappropriation of family funds. Because guess what? He did not only misuse my card, he also took from Mom and Dad's retirement savings. Those very people who once told me he was simply going through a tough time. How ironic. When I asked Sarah why she chose to help, she explained, and because you deserve support, and I could not rest, knowing they would keep draining you. She was no longer just Jason's ex. She turned into a truth-teller armed with proof. Michael lost his job quietly. The rumor is that Human Resources started an inquiry after an anonymous package arrived. He attempted to call me once more, leaving a voicemail. You have made your point, Abigail. You have embarrassed us all, but family is not a business deal. You will regret this. I chose not to reply. Because here is the reality. Family acts like a business deal only when it has always been one-sided. David and I stood strong. He supported me when I revealed everything. The good, the bad, the bank statements. He did not hesitate. He simply held my hand and said, I am proud you did not let this make you bitter. He is the first person in my life who never expected me to earn his love through sacrifice. We are planning to move in together this autumn. A new place, larger, filled with light. And no, I did not ask anyone for financial help. As for I cashed the check and then donated every single cent to a scholarship fund for young nurses who support their families financially while they are still in school. Because someone out there was me 5 years ago, struggling and working hard while her family acted as if it was normal. Let her understand that it is not. Let her know she is not alone. So, what does that leave me with? Stronger, more reserved, and wiser. Still a daughter and a sister, but no longer their support system. I no longer carry their burdens. I carry my own limits, my peace, and the memory of the day I finally said, I am not your safety net. I am my own person. They did not comprehend me for that, but I cherish myself for having said it. So this is what I leave behind. The guilt, the fear, and the false belief that being the good one means bleeding endlessly for others. And here is what I hold on to. My life. It might not be perfect, but it belongs to me. And this time, I will not share it with anyone who does not treat me as if I matter. I used to be their pillar, the one they leaned on. Now I stand tall by myself. And the door I closed that day remains firmly shut. Only now the key is in my pocket, and it is staying there.